water supply in Chama North, and so this matter was inadmissible. The second one came from Solowezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Alex Katakwe. This was on the non-payment allowances to officers issuing national registration cards in Solowezi East. This matter was equally inadmissible.
The other matter came from Minilunga Member. This one was on the roads in Chief possible 2025 rainy season, and this matter was inadmissible.
After those three matters, the Minister of Health made a statement on the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme and updated the House on the operations and performance of the scheme.
If you do remember well, the Minister of Finance did present the motion, and there was a resumption of debate, and this was the Planning and Budgeting Committee that the House do adopt the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the consideration of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan Amendment for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, and this document was laid on the table of the House on the 5th of July 2023, and it was the chairperson of this committee, Mr. Fred Jatila, who is also member of Parliament, who moved this motion. And there was a consideration of a bill, Matimba.
Yes, the House did consider the Lands Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2024, which came at committee stage. It was read a second time, and it was committed to the committee of the whole House, and so committee stage is expected to be considered on Tuesday, 16th July 2024.
The House did consider the Matrimonial Causes Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2023, which read the third time and passed.
After that, there was a commencement of committee work. The House resolved into Committee of Supply to consider the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024, and so the House in Committee of Supply considered 8 heads yesterday, and the first head that the House considered is head 03, National Assembly, and the total amount of 5,360,033 kwacha was agreed to.
The other head that was considered was head 12, which is Office of the Public Protector, and a total amounting to 1,850,163 kwacha was agreed to. The other one was head 17, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a total 1,679,000 was agreed to.
The other head that was considered is head 21, Loans and Investments, and the total amount of 17,916,983 kwacha was agreed to. The House also considered head 29, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and the total amount of 2 billion was agreed to.
The other heads that were considered yesterday was head 35, which is Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises Development, and a total amounting to 125,530,148 kwacha was ordered to stand as part of the estimates. Also head 45, which is Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, an amount totaling to 5,330,906,664 kwacha was ordered to stand as part of the estimates.
The last head that was considered is head 52, Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation, and the total amount of 301,610,991 was agreed to.
And it being 18:25 hours, progress was reported, and leave us to sit again. And the committee is expected to sit today, and the House adjourned at 18:31 hours. So the House will continue considering individual items, and like I mentioned earlier on, the House did adjourn at 18:31 hours, and today the presiding officer is expected to take the chair at 14:30. So basically, that's the business that was considered on the floor of the House. On the other side, we'll look at today's business. Keep watching Parliament Television.
You can now advertise on Parliament Television and Parliament Radio. For more information, call 0977 85 4102 or 0977 536487. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Still watching Parliament Television, we go straight into looking at business that is expected to be considered on the floor of the House today, Thursday, 11th July 2024. We expect announcements if there will be any. We also have a ruling on a point of order by Honorable Gary Jinkombo MP, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, against Mr. Lucas Simumba, Member of Parliament for Nakonde.
The House is also expected to consider urgent matters without notice, if there be any, and ministerial statement which will come from the Minister of Finance and National Planning. And this ministerial statement is on the proposed ban on the use of foreign currency for local financial transactions and the phasing out of checks. And after the minister has presented the ministerial statement, we expect members of Parliament to ask follow-up questions seeking clarity from the minister.
After that, we expect Mwendi Member of Parliament, Ms. Siveso Sefulo, to move a motion urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on National Economy, Trade and Labour Matters on the ratification of the International Agreement on the Southern African Development Protocol on Industry for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Monday, 8th July 2024.
There will be a resumption of consideration of the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024, and there will be committee work. And yesterday, like my colleague mentioned, 8 heads were considered. So today we expect the House to continue considering or working committee work today, which is the 11th day in the month of July 2020. Remember, last week the minister did present the supplementary estimates of expenditure of mounting to 41.9 billion. So we expect the House to approve those estimates. So Matimba, basically that's a business for today.
Yes, President, and anytime from now, on your screen is Madam Speaker's procession making its way to the chamber. Keep watching Parliament Television. Good afternoon.
Honorable Members of Parliament, Madam Speaker. Yeah.
Descendants of Zambia, proud and free, land of work and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom's fight for one, strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, fashioned with and blessed by those who blend. Let us so happy
Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation, in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. All the honorable members, can we settle down? I have two announcements and one ruling. I'll start with the rulings. Honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Matero Middle School in Matero, Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. You are welcome. Thank you. You may take your seats. The next one, honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Lukem School in Makeni Villa, Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. I thank you. You may take your seats. Now the ruling, this is a ruling on a point of order raised on 26 June 2024 by Honorable Gigi Nkombo, MP, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, against Mr. L. Simumba, Member of Parliament for Nakonde Constituency, for making statements while debating that had no connection to the motion that was being considered on the floor of the House. Honorable members will recall that on Wednesday, 26 June 2024, when the House was considering the report of the Parliamentary Select Committee appointed to scrutinize the presidential appointment of Mr. Kefas Kampambakatongo and Ms. Eva Jala to serve as members of the Judicial Complaints Commission, JCC, and Mr. Jack Kalala to serve as a member of the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC Board. And Mr. El Simumba, Member of Parliament for Nakonde Constituency, was debating. Honorable Gigi Nkombo, MP, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, raised a point of order. In his point of order, Honorable Gigi Nkombo, MP, inquired whether Mr. El Simumba, MP, was in order to make statements while debating that had no connection to the motion being considered on the floor of the House. Honorable members, in his immediate response, the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker reserved his ruling in order to start the matter. I have since studied the matter and I will now render my ruling. Honorable members, Standing Order 139 of the National Assembly of Zambia Standing Orders 2024 requires a member who wishes to raise a point of order to cite the standing order, law or on privilege of members, rule of procedure or practice that had allegedly been breached. Honorable members, a review of the verbatim record of the Wednesday, 26 June 2024, reveals that Honorable Gigi Nkombo MP did not cite the standing order, law on privilege of member, rule of procedure or practice on which his point of order was based. In that regard, the point of order did not comply with the requirements of standing order 1 and is therefore inadmissible. Honorable members have on several occasions provided guidance to the House on the need to cite the relevant rule, law, privilege, practice or procedure that has been breached when a point of order is being raised. Honorable members, once more, are reminded to cite the relevant standing order, law, rule of procedure or practice breached whenever a point of order is raised. I thank you. Urgent matters without notice. The Honorable Member for Kamfinsa.
Allow me, Madam Speaker, to thank you once again for the opportunity to direct an urgent matter with the Minister responsible for Finance and National Planning. Madam Speaker, with your permission, allow me to proceed. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to draw the attention of the Minister of Finance to the issue relating to a bank or a financial institution called Invest Trust Bank, which is 74% owned by ZCCM-IH and 25% owned by private entities. Honorable Minister of Finance, you have informed the nation that steps have been taken to transfer performing loans and various parts of that bank to ZICB, which obviously shows that there's a willingness to resolve some of the challenges the bank has been facing. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the bank under discussion, Invest Trust, has got over 350 workers whose fate is unknown. And obviously, Madam Speaker, these 350 Zambian citizens are dotted across the country. Madam Speaker, is the Minister responsible for Finance in order not to come and assure the over 350 workers that, number one, their employment status will be restored, considering that there are steps to transfer assets to ZICB. And Madam Speaker, for the benefit of the public, ZICB used to be Intermarket Bank, which used to be a public institution. When the bank could not perform correctly, government took steps and transformed Intermarket into ZICB. Why can government not do the same to ensure that the workers are paid off or they are retained employment? Madam Speaker, I submit on behalf of the over 350 workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Kamfinsa. I would suggest that you put in a question to address that issue that you have raised concerning the workers, 350 workers across the country who were working for Invest Trust Bank. So you put in a question. The Honorable Member for Pambasha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my matter of public agents importance is directed to the Minister in charge of Internal Security and Home Affairs. Madam Speaker, yesterday and the day before yesterday, we were experiencing a lot of riots where private and public properties have been destroyed. Yesterday it began at Chiriapa Market, and there were serious running battles where the individual private properties and government properties could have been damaged. The other day it was in the Bahati constituents in the area called Senam, where the one old woman's home was ransacked and burnt and killed. And the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security is quiet, Madam Speaker, without coming to this August House to assure the steps the government is taking to maintain peace and security for and on behalf of the people of Luapula province and Zambia in general. I seek your guidance, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Pambashe, for that point that you have raised. I will suggest that you put in an urgent question. I've seen something in the paper, but you know, sometimes it's difficult to rely on the information in the papers. So if the minister, you put in a question, the minister will be able to clarify those issues. The last one will be the Honorable Member for Chitambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my matter is directed at the Minister of Communication. Is it technology and communication? Yes. Madam Speaker, we have a challenge in this country right now where network connectivity has become a problem. And Madam Speaker, on several times, you have reminded the Minister to come back to us to tell us when he's going to construct the towers which he promised. And up to now, he has not yet come back to us to inform us about the much needed towers. But now the problem is there, Madam Speaker, is the network connectivity, especially in rural areas. Madam Speaker, nowadays, phones have become a very important means of communication, and this gives so much room to our people, especially us with rural constituencies, to talk to our people when we're here. And also, Madam Speaker, when people fall sick in rural areas, it is members of parliament who help them when they call us. It is becoming a challenge to talk to them. Even in schools where they are learning ICT, Madam Speaker, it has also become a challenge. Madam Speaker, I need your serious guidance on this matter.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Chitambo. That issue of the towers is not new. I recall that just recently we were reminding the Honorable Minister that the towers had not been erected in most constituencies, and there was a circular that was sent to honorable members, and honorable members were encouraged or urged to get in touch with the minister to inquire the progress of the installation of those towers. So maybe honorable member for Chitambo, to make sure that that matter is debated on the floor of the House, you can put in a question, and then the honorable minister will be able to explain how far this process has gone. I know it's a problem that honorable members, most honorable members are complaining that the towers that were promised have not yet been installed. Thank you very much. Honorable member, you want to debate the issue? Sorry?
What I spoke about, Madam Speaker, was the connectivity network. Towers are already there, but the reception is not there. So we need the minister to give us some information as to what is happening, because you can't communicate to our people in the rural areas. That's what I raised, Madam Speaker.
Okay, then you just put in a question, because I believe the issue of towers and connectivity might be related. So let the honorable minister come to the House, following the question that you are going to put, to submit, to come and explain, and then honorable members will be able to ask questions to the honorable minister of, it's actually science and technology, not communications. Thank you very much. We make progress. I have permitted the Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning to make a ministerial statement. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm making a ministerial statement on the proposed ban on the use of foreign currencies for local financial transactions and the phasing out of the checks. Madam Speaker, Allow me to start by thanking you for according me this opportunity to address the issue raised by Honorable Anton Mumba, Member of Parliament for Kantanshi, on the proposed ban on the use of foreign currencies for local transactions and the phasing out of payment checks. This will not just give me an opportunity to address this august House, but also the general public at large. I wish to indicate that both matters pertaining to the draft foreign currency regulations as well as the phasing out of checks are draft proposals. I repeat, they are draft proposals that are being presented to stakeholders for consultation by the Bank of Zambia. At this point in time, I can therefore just provide broad remarks. Foreign currency regulations, the draft. On the 20th of June 2024, the Bank of Zambia began a consultation process regarding the draft foreign currency regulation through the Public-Private Dialogue Forum, PPDF. It is worth noting that consultations are also ongoing with associations. Once the Bank of Zambia have received feedback from all stakeholders, they will then present the finalized draft regulations. It is therefore important to first allow this consultative process to conclude. Madam Speaker, may I, however, take this opportunity to highlight the broad goals of the current regulations. Number one is to enforce the existing law and strengthen the implementation of monetary policy, which works by influencing quoting and pricing of domestic transactions in Zambian kwacha. And two, dollarization can be detrimental to financial stability as it gives rise to mismatches in foreign currency assets and liabilities of financial institutions where there is a steep movement in the exchange rate. The draft foreign currency regulations are therefore aimed at enhancing financial sector stability. Madam Speaker, it is important to note that these regulations are not standalone, but are part of the broader policy measures the government has implemented to reform the economy, which I've outlined in my previous budgets. These measures have also included financial sector reforms, such as the electronic balance of payments and the export tracking framework. And on the phasing out of the payment checks, Madam Speaker, let me begin by indicating that the notice currently circulating on social media platforms titled Public Notice on Phasing Out of Checks was not issued by Bank of Zambia. While Bank of Zambia is currently discussing the possibility of phasing out checks with stakeholders, it is important for this August House to note that these consultations are still ongoing. The Bank of Zambia will accordingly issue a public statement once these engagements are concluded and a decision is made. Broadly, phasing out of checks is one of the key initiatives being pursued under the National Payment System Vision and Strategy 2023 to 2027. This is mainly on account of the significant decline in the usage of checks over the past decade. Let me therefore repeat, Madam Speaker, that the Bank of Zambia has commenced stakeholder consultations to allow for wider discussions and feedback. This will help in creating the necessary awareness of the intention of this regulation and to ensure that these regulations work for all. Madam Speaker, in this regard, I want to assure the members of this August House and the public that the discontinuation of the usage of checks as a payment instrument will be done in a coordinated and phased manner and in consultation with relevant stakeholders. Government plans to take a more gradual approach with a time frame of at least 18 months. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members are now free to ask questions on points of clarification on the ministerial statement given by the Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning. The Honorable Member for Bwacha.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Speaker, for according me an opportunity to pose a follow-up question to the Honorable Minister of Finance after delivering his ministerial statement. Minister, you indicated during the delivery of your ministerial statement that the process is consultative and it is ongoing. Would you attach a duration when the consultations will be concluded in order to effect the proposed changes? I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Madam Speaker, there is no specific timetable that has been indicated, so the process is ongoing. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kantanshi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for that reassuring statement. Indeed, there is need for wider consultation considering the failure of a similar undertaking that Bank of Zambia did. I'm sure you remember statutory SI 31 and 51, which was signed on the 7th of May of, I think, 2013, and we saw the disastrous result. However, Honourable Minister of Finance, the exercise that is being undertaken so far already has sent shivers on the financial markets. And you know very well that our levels of production are not so good for us to have the US dollar. Thank you for your initiative to ensure that all copper proceeds should be banked through the Bank of Zambia. That obviously will answer a lot of our currency fluctuation. But is the timing right for this exercise, considering the number of reforms that are taking place right now? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to Honorable Mumba. The timing, I don't see any harm about it because consultations take place all the time. And Madam Speaker, it is not long ago when in this same House there were a lot of concerns about the movement in the exchange rate of the kwacha. And obviously, part of the issues then was the fact that as the exchange rate depreciated, more and more people tended to quote their prices in dollars. So, that being the case, this trend was one of those that was thought, if not managed properly, could make the situation worse. Because at the extreme, it would mean, for example, that if I go and buy a tomato in the market, somebody would say, pay me in dollars. So I must go to a bureau to change, buy dollars, and then come and pay for tomatoes. To buy spare parts, pay me in dollars. So this sort of thing, Madam Speaker, can drive its own process and lead to problems. However, as Honorable Mumba has indicated, obviously the fundamental problem behind all this was the fact that there was not sufficient foreign currency coming into the country. Our mining sector was having problems. But the good news is that the mining sector now, Mopani is back to life after being in limbo for several years. KCM also coming to life. New mine to open next year between between Kasumbalesa and the Chilabombe, which will be the biggest mine ever in this country. New mine open in Mumbwa. So, Madam Speaker, the capacity of the country to earn foreign currency is increasing all the time. That's why, even though this was recognized to be a problem, that is dollarization or the frequent use of dollars, a consultative process was engaged, bearing in mind that, on the other hand, there are these envisaged improvements in the ability of the country to earn foreign currency. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kwacha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity accorded to ask a follow-up question to the Minister of Finance. May I know from the Minister the effects of these measures, particularly on the mining sector? These are companies that normally deals with foreign denominated currency, which is predominantly the dollar. At the time they are making those purchases of various equipments and materials which are used in their operations. May I know what effects this will entail in the mining sector? Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Maybe I can also use that opportunity to clarify one thing. And that thing is that there have been insinuations that this is a return to foreign exchange controls. Madam Speaker, foreign exchange controls mean that for you to be able to acquire foreign currency, you must get permission. For you to be able to make a transaction outside the country, like importation, sending profits, buying spares, you must get permission to do so. Madam Speaker, this is nothing of the sort. Whether these regulations will be passed or not in the manner in which they appear today, foreign exchange controls will remain outside this country. They will not be implemented, which means that you may get your foreign currency, you still are free to import anything without asking for permission, to send your profit out without asking for permission. So this is not exchange control at all. and also to remind some of my colleagues that a US dollar as a currency can circulate in a country, but in spite of that, you may still have foreign exchange controls, which means that the currency in circulation may be dollar or any other foreign currency, but for you to make a transaction outside the country, to buy a car, to buy whatever, you may still need permission. So this is not about exchange controls. Regarding the specifications of those companies that use foreign currency a lot, the current regulations, the current draft regulations, as we continue to engage the stakeholders, they provide for exceptions for companies such as the one that is mentioned, which use a lot of foreign currencies, or the nature of their business is such that they need to invoice in US dollars. So in the draft regulations, those exceptions do exist, and part of the consultations is to ask the question, are there any other sectors apart from those in the regulations which may be considered for exceptions? And I repeat, these are draft regulations. It's not yet government policy. Draft is not yet government policy. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Bangweru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, I'm cognizant to the fact that economic dynamics do change. So does the fiscal policy and monetary policy. Minister, you may recall that on the 10th of July 2012, the late Minister, Honorable Chikwanda, did introduce the ban of the usage of the dollar in Zambian transactions. And in their usual fashion, our colleagues, the UPND, condemned the move and called it illegal, and continued to politicize about it, to call it names. And 2 years later, on the 5th of May 2014, SI 33 was withdrawn. And this is the same intervention that you are introducing in the economy now. So they are doing everything that they condemned in the past. Of course, we are not part of them. You were MMD by then. So, Minister, what has really changed? Thank you so very much.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. If you listened very carefully, the Honorable said my predecessor then introduced the regulations. What I've said this afternoon is that we've presented proposals as a draft. We have not introduced. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Order. The Honorable Member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I'm happy that you have made a clarification on the issue of foreign exchange controls. However, my question is based on the other sector, the real estate business. We find that most of the people that deal in real estate, they usually quote their prices in US dollars, and when they transact and go to make payments at ZRI for property transfer tax, there's a lot of cheating. You find people undervaluing the values that they've quoted in US dollars, they bring them down. I wanted to find out what measures are you doing, especially in the real estate sector, what measures have you put up in place that people will not go back to the old system of transacting in US dollars, then they present the contracts that have been signed in Kwacha? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. Obviously, what we are talking about here is a little bit different in the sense that you are now talking about people making arrangements to tax plan or even tax avoid. So obviously, that is the responsibility of the Zambia Revenue Authority, and I'm sure they are watching the situation, not just for that particular type of transaction, but tax compliance in general. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Chimwemwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Mine is a rider on my colleague from Kwacha. I know you've already answered it partly, but I'm more concerned on the suppliers and contractors of the mines. Honorable Minister, most of them are still transacting in Kwacha, and because of the current fluctuation of the currency, they keep losing a great deal. Will you, already you've said that there is provision, I agree, and I also agree that you've said that the other traders, like shops, yes, they should be trading in Kwacha because they're ripping off people. But with these contractors, Honorable Minister, do you think perhaps you will give them an opportunity to continue trading in US dollar so that they do not suffer the exchange losses, considering that 98% of the goods that they import comes from outside, and at the same time the profit margin right now is ranging between 10 and 15 because of the large number of contractors in the country? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Madam Speaker, I want to stress that, again, these are draft regulations. Those with specific concerns, such as the one that the Honorable is mentioning, that's why Bank of Zambia has opened its doors to say, let's talk and hear about your issue. Now, having said that, I also want to say that the issue of the exchange rate movements and business, that is something that you find everywhere in the world. There is no currency, or at least in many countries, there is no currency that is fixed to the others in perpetuity. These exchange rates move. But what we've seen is that in those countries, it's not necessarily always the case that when the exchange rate move, then people must say, let's dump our local currency, let's go to another currency. Because you go in South Africa, the last, I think, a year or so ago, the exchange rate depreciated significantly. But the tendency to invoice in US dollars or any other foreign currency was not as extensive as here. Even when you look at the euro and the Americans, and the exchange rates move, sometimes violently, but the tendency to move into that, obviously. So these are the sort of issues that Bank of Zambia is amenable to listen to and say, how do we find a solution that works well for as many people as possible? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kasenengwa.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I needed to find out more information from the Minister of Finance because he has indicated that people will be getting permission whenever they are doing foreign currency transactions. Now, I don't know how widespread the consultations are, because coming from the air and the tourism industry, there are transactions
that we do almost bi-weekly, especially in the airline industry. The billing cycle is bi-weekly. Players in this market going to be getting permission every 2 weeks for them to make foreign currency transactions. Or maybe I may need a clarification. I may not have heard you very well on that one, because I don't really find it necessary that every 2 weeks you have to get permission, because there are some that you trade in foreign currency, and it's almost inevitable that you can avoid some of these transactions. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Madam Speaker, this is very interesting, because I remember one time when we were still first year to the university, somebody made an experiment, made a statement, then went around. You all listened to the statement, yes. What did you say? There were so many different versions of what was claimed to have been said. So this is an example of that. Honorable Twasa, I never at any moment said there will be permission required. Yeah, there will be no permission required. All I said is that in the general framework of trying to avoid invoicing in US dollars for every sundry, whether it's tomatoes, whether it is a shoe, whether you are buying an axe, that is what Bank of Zambia is trying to discourage. Okay? So let's invoice in kwacha. However, what I said that as they attempt to find an acceptable formula for discouraging invoicing in kwacha, they do recognize that there are some business types that are invariably make it more practical for the invoicing to be done in currencies other than the kwacha. And once if these regulations are to go ahead, once those exceptions are made, there will be no requirement for you daily, weekly, monthly, annually to say, can I now invoice in dollars? No. Once the exceptions are made, they remain exceptional without the requirement of to and from. I hope I've answered your question.
I hope Honorable Member for Kasanengo has gotten the answer. If you haven't, Honorable Member, you can engage the Honorable Minister on the sidelines so that he explains that situation. The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
I'm grateful, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Honorable Minister of Finance a follow-up question. Honorable Minister, the view I've taken is that what is being contemplated will result into some form of foreign exchange controls in the country. I'm grateful, Honorable Minister, that you come to the House when you're still in the stages of consultation and negotiation. The question we have is, in the event that the government, the business sector, which is likely to be impacted directly by these proposed changes, does not agree, or in negotiations they tell you that this will negatively impact on their doing business in Zambia, are you able to undertake to the House and the country that government will drop these negotiations without implementing it? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, just to again emphasize, there will be no foreign exchange controls. Foreign exchange controls were abolished in 1993. They are not about to come back. We all know, those who lived during that time, the kind of inconveniences that members of the public were subjected to. Even to buy a book, go and get permission. To go for a funeral in Zimbabwe, go and get permission to get dollars. So that can never ever come back again, certainly not under this administration. The issue of the consultations, that's what they are.
If something is practical, it goes ahead. If it's not, it's dropped. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Mukushi South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, you have indicated that the consultative process in terms of the use of checks may take up to 18 months. 18 months. Now, I know that you want maybe to shift into electronic payments, bearing in mind that now we have challenges of, and my honorable member for Chitambo raised an issue of connectivities, which will require electronic payments. Obviously will require some networks, even in the rural parts of the country. Now, would you share with us what has motivated you to start this process of engaging stakeholders in order for you to phase out the use of checks? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, to correct Honorable, you did not hear properly. The 18 months was from the time when the decision is made that from now onwards, no more checks. So from that day to the time when checks will not be allowed at all, 18 months. So 18 months is the transition period. Why is this being done? Madam Speaker, just to explain that a check is basically like a letter. I have my money with a clerk here, and I need to pay somebody in Mbala. So I give the letter to somebody in Mbala. Here's the payment. Go to my bank in Lusaka to get paid. So the person in Mbala must travel to Lusaka, present the check. The bank says, okay, you've got money, we'll pay you. Or we don't have money, take your letter back. Now, you can imagine the inconvenience. I'm starting from the very period when we are still operating on checks. You can imagine the inconvenience. Sometimes you would get a check before it clears. Remember that term of clearing? It would take 2 weeks, 17 days, depending on the locations of the person. So this was inconvenient. And over the years, the Bank of Zambia has been implementing measures under the so-called payment system to remove this inefficiency. And in removing this inefficiency, people have migrated to more efficient ways of exchanging payments.
Oh, the Honorable Member from Pika, there can only be one member standing on the floor of the House. We will say bye-bye to you. May the Minister continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So people have been migrating to more efficient ways of exchanging money. These days, from your phone, you can issue an instructions, pay Mr. ABC in Mbala, and it happens instantaneously. So, under those circumstances, why should we continue with this old technology of presenting a letter in Mbala, which must come back and take 17 days? In any case, as the statement says, members of the public themselves, they've realized that the technology of checks is inconvenient. So they've been abandoning checks. The number of times people use checks now is dropped drastically. But because legally there's still a form of payment, we are bound to keep the infrastructure that maintains those checks. And this is expensive. So therefore, now that we've all agreed that there are more efficient ways of exchanging payments,
It's time to say, let's gradually drop this inefficient way of exchanging payments, but for that, a period of transition is going to be provided. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Sinazongwe.
Greatly humbled, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you are aware, or the House is aware, of the challenges that are faced by electronic transactions vis-à-vis the check transactions. Not long ago, Madam Speaker, we had our colleague's phone which was hacked. So meaning we have hackers in the electronic transaction business, as well as scammers. Now, what I wanted to find out from the Honorable Minister was whether those who are doing consultation through you, Madam Speaker, would be permitted to come to Parliament so that at least we can have an engagement with them to allay the fears like the one I've mentioned. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Indeed, Madam Speaker, if the wish is for the MPs to be engaged on this, that can be arranged, and it will be a good idea because many MPs here come from rural areas, and they should be able to present the situations that they face, that their people face, and be able to advise the Bank of Zambia on how to calibrate this new system. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, in terms of safety, you recall that with the checks, instances of fraud were even more prevalent, whereas the electronic payments, fraud does take place, but it's quite easy to detect and to block. So frauds are not a new thing. Frauds were there under checks payment system. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. We've run out of time. I still see 3 members that have indicated. Since there are just 3, we can accommodate them, but please be specific to the point so that we can move over to the next item. The Honorable Member for Kamfisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your generosity. Minister of Finance, just to be very clear, you are saying there are conversations taking place. It's a consultative phase in which you are, meaning there's no decision at this stage. But even that consultative process must have some objectives. So what I want us to find out, are the Forex transactions only limited to invoices, or they are also related to purchase orders? Because it is a purchase order that translates into an invoice. So what exactly are you attempting to achieve? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Madam Speaker, I think this is part really of the consultative processes, and I would suggest that those questions that is raising, you should find time to visit the Bank of Zambia, raise them, and I'm sure they'll provide clarity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kaumbwe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Honorable Minister, most of the mega construction projects normally that are foreign financed are quoted in US dollars. For example, the construction of flyover bridges, the Kazungula Bridge, the hydropower stations, also including the Lusaka-Ndola dual carriageway project. They are quoted in US dollars. What effect or what control measures will government put in order to enforce this foreign currency transaction in terms of execution of contracts that are quoted in US dollars? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Madam Speaker, first of all, just to correct that it's not all big contracts that are quoted in dollars.
Some are quoted in Kwacha. But my general response to him is this is precisely why this is a consultative process, so that issues like that can be laid on the table and people come to an agreement on the best way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Efficient mode of transaction versus the rural lack of technical advancement. So, while there's efficiency that we want in the financial transactions, what about the remoteness which matches with lack of enhancement of this technology? For example, those people in the far Nguma, Minurunga, we can mention the remote areas where there is less technical advancement, meaning the efficiency that you are looking for will be hard to achieve. What modalities in that 18 months of phasing out the checks, whenever it will take place, what measures will the government put in place to make sure that the rural parts will match with the town dwellers to achieve the efficient mode of transaction? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In actual fact, Madam Speaker, the rural people that Honorable MP for Kalabo talks about, they never use checks. They never use checks. So far from time immemorial, what they use are coins and notes. So I don't think this will affect them. However, I also want to say that his constituency is just, we are neighbors, and some of the typical rural areas, I also have them. The good news is that even some of the most remote places, payments in form of cash now is coexisting with payments via technology money, mobile money, where there is network. And I think for people like me, I've bought fish using mobile money. I've bought cassava using mobile money. I've bought mealie meal in the villages using mobile money. And I think this is something that people actually appreciate from both in terms of convenience, but also these devices being something where you can put money, so-called store of value. When you are being paid in currency, you have to be worried, is my house going to be on fire? Is somebody going to break into my house and steal the money? But people now appreciate being paid in the mobile money, because even if somebody steals your phone, they have not stolen your money. You can still retrieve your money. So this technological development, I think is positive for our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Notes of motion, the Honorable Member for Ron.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on National Economy, Trade and Labour Matters on the ratification of the Southern African Development Community SADC Protocol on Industries.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mitete. Seconded by the Honourable Member for Lufubu. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on National Economy, Trade and Labour Matters on the ratification of the international agreement on the Southern African Development Protocol on Industry for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Monday, 8th July 2024. Any debate? The Honourable Member for Ron.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, again. Madam Speaker, in accordance with its terms of reference, as set out under Standing Order 209, subsection 1 and 210, subsection F of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2024, the committee considered the international agreement on the SADC Protocol on Industry. Madam Speaker, from the onset, let me state that the committee is in support of the proposal to ratify the agreement, as ratifying this protocol offers Zambia significant opportunities that will bolster its industrial sector through enhanced regional interconnection and cooperation. This protocol aims to harmonize industrial policies across member states, fostering a more cohesive and competitive regional industrial landscape. Madam Speaker, as the committee reviewed the agreement, several important issues came to the committee's attention. Based on the concerns raised, the committee has made observations and recommendations which are detailed in the report. However, I will highlight a few of them. Madam Speaker, the committee bemoans the unstable power supply Zambia is facing today, which has resulted in poor production and sale of goods and services for the industrial sector to flourish. There is need to have a consistent power supply that supports the production of finished goods through value addition. Therefore, the committee strongly recommends that the government should urgently invest in the development of sustainable alternative energy sources by diversifying in solar and other renewable energy options. We can ensure a reliable power supply that will support manufacturing, production, and other economic activities within the industrial sector. Madam Speaker, the other issue relates to access to finance for micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises in Zambia. This issue, Madam Speaker, is coupled with the high cost of statutory fees required to set up a company in Zambia. Madam Speaker, to address these issues, the committee implores the government through the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises to create an enabling environment for local micro, small, and medium enterprises to enter and to participate in the multi-facility economic zones and industrial yards, where supportive infrastructure for production and manufacturing is already in place. Madam Speaker, additionally, the government should consider reducing the fees associated with company registration to make it more affordable for entrepreneurs and small businesses. For example, companies in the construction sector pay fees to both the National Council for Construction and the Engineering Institute of Zambia. The committee is of the view that in order to reduce the cost associated with company registration, there is need for the government to streamline the fee structure so as to eliminate or hinder redundant charges, making it more transparent and easier to understand and administer. Madam Speaker, additionally, for Zambia to develop a robust industrial base, there is need to enhance supporting infrastructure in key areas such as transportation, telecommunications, and warehousing facilities. Focusing on these key infrastructure areas will result in the creation of a more conducive environment for industrial growth and economic development. Madam Speaker, the committee also observes that with great concern that Zambia has acceded to approximately 170 international agreements scattered across various government departments at a significant cost to the nation. However, there is no unified monitoring mechanism to determine implementation and level of beneficiation to the Republic. Therefore, it is crucial for the government to put in place a systematic monitoring mechanism that will ensure effective implementation of these agreements. This will help the government to fully understand and appreciate the benefits they bring to the country. Madam Speaker, allow me to conclude by stating that the committee supports the ratification of the international agreements on the SADC protocol on industry and urges the House to support the ratification. Finally, Madam Speaker, I wish to pay tribute to the witnesses who interacted with the committee for the valuable insights they provided. Gratitude also goes to you, Madam Speaker, and the Clerk of the National Assembly for the guidance and support rendered to the committee throughout its deliberations. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Lufubu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first and foremost, allow me to thank the mover, Honorable Joe Chiwe, the Vice Chair of the committee, in the manner in which he has moved the motion. And Madam Speaker, like we've heard from the mover, I wish to also emphasize that this protocol, Madam Speaker, is very important because it is aimed at harmonizing industrial policies and enhance productive capacity across member states. By doing so, it seeks also to create a diversified industrial base that can withstand global economic fluctuation and drive inclusive growth. Madam Speaker, as we sat looking at this and looking at all the witnesses that were brought to come and also submit, a lot of things were brought forth. And most of them, the chair has talked about, and I think others, there are people who indicated also will talk about them. I just want to talk about one particular thing, Madam Speaker, in seconding this motion, and this is infrastructure. Because no matter what we can do, without infrastructure to support this, it will not work out. And the Speaker touched part of it on the issue of road network and railway and airport. On road network, Madam Speaker, is coming out clearly that the government should have a deliberate policy where all districts should be connected by at least bituminous standard road. And this will open up all districts and bring and make it easier for the raw materials from these districts to be able to support this industrialization. Without this, industrialization will just be on paper because raw materials comes from this district. And particularly, I can even relate to Lufubu constituency, which is very rich with raw materials. But because of road network, you will find that this constituency is not participating fully in issues of providing raw materials in order to grow the industries in Zambia. The railway sector, I think we are very much behind. Even as we get to ratify this, we should know that this will even push us far much faster to be able to work on the railway industry. Because the railway industry is very significant when it comes to industrialization. without the railway industry being properly functional, it will be very difficult and costly to deal with the industrialization in Zambia. Right now, as we speak, Zambia Railways is not doing too well. And when you look at the infrastructure, it can't support not even 20% of what this industrialization requires. Hence, the committee urging the government to quickly work on this one. Madam Speaker, network. Right now as we speak, I think most of the rural constituencies where this raw material is supposed to come from, telecommunication network is very bad. This also should urgently be worked on. Then we talk about power. The chair mentioned it, but also in details we should also look at it that all districts in Zambia should be connected to the national grid. Failure to do that, it will be very, very difficult because power is required even to extract the raw materials that is required for this industrialization. Madam Speaker, with these few words, indeed few words, the people of Rufuvu are seconding and supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the list is growing. We don't have much time, so honorable members, as you debate, ensure that you don't repeat. And if you can yield some time to the next member, that will be very helpful. The honorable member for Lunte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's a great honor for me to speak in support of this motion on the floor of the House in representation of the people of Lunte. Madam Speaker, industrialization is the way to create jobs. It is a way to create business. It is a way to handle the problem of young people who are everywhere in every town of our country looking for jobs. Madam Speaker, when you consider a protocol such as this, you are always tempted to look at the advantages. But I do think it is important to also consider the disadvantage, even as highlighted by the committee. Madam Speaker, on what page is this? I'm not sure if this report is paged. Okay, on page 4, maybe starting from page 3, demerits of the ratification. Stakeholders submitted that in the event that Zambia ratified the protocol on industry, it agreed to adhere to the standards and regulations outlined in the protocol. This meant that the country was legally obliged to implement the protocol's guiding principles and could face consequences for non-compliance. Madam Speaker, part 3 of the report, the committee highlights number 1 or 7.1, lack of stable power supply. Now, this is a problem. I think that the families who are affected by load shedding have made complaints. As a matter of fact, recently we had people protesting at ZESCO. Some of them were arrested. I hear they've been released. Madam Speaker, the issue of lack of stable power supply now goes to industry. This is what the committee has observed. It now goes to affect the industry, the capacity of the country to create jobs, the capacity of the country to absorb the young people who are looking for jobs. So this is a serious problem. And this is where people must focus on generation of alternatives and implementing workable alternatives. Madam Speaker, in Germany, not long ago, they constructed a photovoltaic or PV system, a solar system, generating up to 14 gigawatts will sort out our country once and for all. Because 1 gigawatt, Madam Speaker, is 1,000 megawatts. This is a solar system. For me, we as a country need to be spending time about such interventions. And you see of the people, particularly in the government, are pro-West. Germany is a Western country. You can learn easily from Germany and be able to bring this technology here in our country where the sun shines even in June, Madam Speaker. I've been to countries where you literally can't see the sun. But here, even in June, the sun shines. So if you bring such kind of technology here, by deliberate decisions, you will be able to solve a problem, which problem is affecting everyone. Madam Speaker, 20 hours of load shedding is very bad, but it is even worse that mining companies can't produce. It is even worse that manufacturing companies cannot produce. It is even worse that we may be able to fail to adhere to the demands of this protocol, and we will become ashamed as a nation. Madam Speaker, I also observed that just in Mamba here, we have a lot of coal. I would be happy to hear government talking about ramping up of production of coal with a view of producing more thermal energy so that we feed into the grid and we do away with this problem which is causing now people protesting all over the place. Madam Speaker, the issue of climate change began a long time ago. Some people argue that climate change began as early as the 1760s. Others, in more specific terms, will say in 1950, that's when we observed, the high temperatures in the equatorial, oceans. Those oceans which are on the tropical ocean, so to speak. Latitude 23.5 degrees north and south. And I think a greater portion of the Pacific and also the Atlantic Ocean, a bit of it. When you record temperatures there, rising temperatures there, you are in trouble. That is what is known as the El Nino. You're in big trouble. Here the minister came and told us they had observed the El Nino. And what followed? What followed were haphazard decisions that you can't imagine the government can make. Where are we now? Today, load shedding. Today, no food in the country. So for me, I encourage the government to make sure that they are not haphazard. They are not thinking anyhow. They must be logical in the way they imagine. So these temperatures that we record in the equatorial oceans should be taken care of. They have not begun today. They began in around 1950, when Kariba Dam was being constructed. Those who funded this country to get a loan to construct Kariba Dam, they knew that Zambezi River would not have water one day. They knew. Those who are creating structures everywhere in aquifers, in northern province and other places, they know that those rivers we cherish are going to dry up and future generations will suffer. Therefore, as you make those poor decisions to make people suffer in future, ensure that you create alternatives. Go to Germany, Madam Speaker. That's my encouragement to our colleagues in the UPND. Go to Germany and ask for that technology. Bring it here. The sun is not about to go. Maybe until our Lord Jesus Christ comes. Madam Speaker, I wish to submit.
I thought the honorable member would yield some time, but he used all the 8 minutes to encourage people to go to Germany. The honorable member for Kanyama.
Madam Speaker, thank you for this opportunity that you've given people of Kanyama to add a voice to the motion laid on the table. Madam Speaker, ratification to this protocol, SADC protocol on industry is a progressive move, and it resonates well with the 8th National Development Plan, in particular Strategic Development Plan number 1, Economic Transformation and Job Creation. Madam Speaker, I just want to, looking at time, I just want to look at one of the articles that are embedded in the protocol. And this is Article 7. Allow me to read. Promotion of small, micro, and medium enterprise. The article provided avenues that allowed developing programs and policies to support the growth and the competitiveness of small, micro, and medium enterprises. Madam Speaker, I want to to connect this to the article, this article to the demerits as outlined in the report, Madam Speaker. After I read through the report, Madam Speaker, in particular Part 3, 7, 2, limited access to finance. And the recommendations were that it is recommended that there must be one pool specifically meant for MSMEs to access incentives such as affordable loans with medium interest rates to support and protect local industries. Madam Speaker, I tend to differ a bit. If you look at the means of small scale, it is providing for this. These loans are given to those who are supposed to, who are eligible to get those loans, as long as they have got all the requisite documentations that will facilitate them to get these loans. The only challenge that I have with that is the fact that we seem not to have a rigorous evaluation or monitoring and evaluation program where those who get these loans are vigorously trailed, followed, evaluated whether that which they applied for is being undertaken. That is the challenge that I'm facing. You realize that if you go to places like where I come from, Kanyama, because of lack of that, people would have decided to share these funds the moment they get them, which is very, very unfortunate. So my appeal is to the line ministries to ensure that as they are giving out these loans or these grants or whatever form of financial support that they're giving to our small scale industry, they have to make sure that they design a program where they'll be able to follow up and ensure that those funds are utilized in the manner they're supposed to be utilized. On the other hand, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the government for having made efforts to ensure that people of Kanyama are able to access these grants or loans. But again, for them to compete on that market, to compete or qualify to get a contract that will give them substantial amount of money. Madam Speaker, as we have heard from the mover of the motion, there are statutory fees that are blocking this. I'll give an example. Like in Kanyama, looking at the larger population that we have, we give grants. And to give 50,000 kwacha to as guided in the CDF guidelines, you only give out to few, and as a result, with this demand from these statutory fees that are required from NCC, registration of a company, you realize that the 13,000 that you would have given, everything goes back to the government, leaving those people vulnerable, and at the end of the day they sit. So you see, as we are discussing this, I think that should be, considered, in a more equitable way. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, for me, the report is very progressive, and it needs the support of each and every member of this House, so that our small-scale industries are boosted by the activation of this protocol. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Chairman North, please, 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think without wasting much of the time, I will straight away say that this is a very good report, and I think it's important that we must support Zambia's ratification to this very, very important protocol. Madam Speaker, this agreement is coming at a very, very crucial period. It is sad that this country moved many, many years in terms of industrial development. But because of inconsistent in economic policies, if you look at 1991, we had a vibrant industrial development in this country. But this idea of every time there is a change of government, you want to erase whatever, even good policies which were the previous government was implementing. I think this is where we have this problem today. Because if the MND government built on the UNIP foundation, UNIP left a very vibrant industrial development in this country. Almost all provinces in this country had industries. We didn't have this problem of youth unemployment. I spend most of the time in Ndola. If you had no employment in a day, piece work, which means you're just lazy. Because Ndola had all the industries there. The textile industries, everything was operating 24-hour service. But we have killed the entire industrial development. Madam Speaker, the IMF, World Bank will not develop this country. This country can only develop by ourselves by coming up with homegrown economic solutions. And I think it is important that consistency, when there's a change of government, let's continue with good policies and maybe do away with bad policies. But the tenders in this country, every time there's a change of government, you want to make sure that whatever the previous government did, you want to discard all those good policies. This is where we have a problem as a country today. The committee, Madam Speaker, has spoken about the issue of unstable power supply. It's very sad that 45 years after the Kafiwe Gorge hydropower project was developed in 1977 by Kenneth Kaunda, no major investment in the power generation for 45 years. Are we a serious nation, surely? Meanwhile, there was increased economic activities in the mining industries. Mines were opening, industrial development, population was increasing, and then from 1977, you only have Kafiwe Gorge lower after 45 years. I believe that I think this is a sector which we can exploit fully as a country. This is the sector which we can also encourage incentive. We are giving incentive to the mining industry. Why don't we also give incentive to those supposed to develop the energy sector? I believe that if we also provided incentive, we are very confident that the private and the private sector will be able to invest in this particular sector. Today, NAPSA and the workers' compensation are financing the Ndola Lusaka biocarriageway. Why can't these companies also invest in the energy sector? I believe that that is a very attractive industry. So let's promote private investment, and as well as the government must continue also to invest in the energy sector. Ethiopia today are building one of the largest hydropower projects in the southern, the whole Africa, 6,000 megawatts. I believe that as a country also, while we are promoting private investment, we must also ensure that the government must also play a role in developing the energy sector. I think with those few remarks, I support this particular report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much for yielding up some time. The Honorable Member for Nyimba, 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know I want to do justice to that. Madam Speaker, first and foremost, we need
I support this. It's very important to us as a country. In addition to that, before even we engage our colleagues, a good number of Southern African countries are developing, whilst us as a country, we are busy trading. Whoever Madam Speaker told MMD that the best way to go with economics is to do trading. That killed this country. This country, Madam Speaker, we used to manufacture wheelbarrows. Today we import wheelbarrows. Yes. What do we need to manufacture a wheelbarrow? It's just a presser and a drilling machine, that's all. But today we have to import a wheelbarrow from China. What kind of people are we? What kind of education are we giving to ourselves? Because it's not normal. We have engineers, Madam Speaker, in this house. We can't manufacture a spanner. We can't manufacture a wheelbarrow. What kind of people are we? This is where we have a problem. Madam Speaker, we've got doctors here who are engineers. But we can't even manufacture a simple pot. What kind of people are we? And these are the jobs we're exporting. They look simple, but very important. Madam Speaker, in my past life, I found myself, Madam Speaker, in big truck manufacturing companies. Madam Speaker, whatever we import in this Zambia written Bosch, it's not manufactured by Bosch themselves. Bosch, practically, maybe it's a trading company. There are small companies dotted along across Germany manufacturing those things. And why can't we do these things as a country? The money, Madam Speaker, today we are spending in Lusaka giving out to buses for CEC buying buses. When we ask for the same money in Nyimba to come up with a farm block, I mean a mechanized farm system, we can't be given. But in Lusaka, Madam Speaker, everywhere you pass, it's dotted CEC minibuses. What are we doing? How many people are we employing? We are saying we can come up with, in the rural areas, sectors which can employ a good number of people. If only we remove this issue of politicking. Because the weakest point we have as a country is politicking. Where we don't need to, in agriculture, Madam Speaker, we don't need politicking. In industrializing this country, we don't need politicking. We need to look at the benefit of this country. Where we are today, Madam Speaker, we have gone 20, 50 years behind. 30, 40 years ago, we used to assemble Toyota vehicles in this country. We were manufacturing trailers in this country. We were assembling radios. Today, these computers, whatever we have, you're supposed to have been manufactured here. Because some person wanted to change things, and this is where we are today. Madam Speaker, it's not too late. Your people on your right, if they sit in their cabinet meeting, they can consult a simple man who is in UPND government, who is a PS, Madam Speaker, of Science and Technology. He's got the solution to this because I've interacted with him. And this is the person who can come up with the idea and he's got the solution to these problems. Let's not look at him as a PS. The man is sharp there, he's got the idea. This is the information I'm giving you because I know it's very difficult for a ruling party to go to opposition and consult, but can you go and see the PS in the Ministry of Science and Technology? Madam Speaker, that is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Chembe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, to give the people of Chembe to echo a few things on this important motion on the floor of the House. To start with, Zambia in general has ratified such type of protocols. And many are times that we sign these protocols, but the benefits, we cannot see them. Henceforth, as much as we support ratification of this protocol, we should always be looking at the positives of each protocol that we are signing. When I cite an example, for example, we have signed protocols to do with trade. What are we benefiting from COMESA? Zambia has turned out to be a dumping ground of goods, as we cannot enter their markets because we are not doing manufacturing. Madam Speaker, on that score, what would drive us to compete favorably on these protocols that we like signing is through industrialization. But what are the drivers of this industrialization? One, the main issue is that we need to look at infrastructure, which we are doing. For example, in Luapula province, despite it having minerals, manganese, and etc., there is no industry that can be put in Luapula. The reason being that there is a power deficit there. Even those who are doing mining in Luapula, they have to carry their manganese from Luapula and bring it to central province for processing. Now you can see the gap that is there. The other thing that can drive this industrialization that we are talking of in this protocol is that the human capital, many are times that we forego these craftspeople on the ground. Industrialization starts from those very people we see in Karingaringa welding, doing what? That's where industrialization starts. Those people, they are able to survive even if they are not employed. They are able also to feed in the industry. But all those people are overlooked. So what are we trying to say is that if we don't look at these drivers of industrialization, then we won't go anywhere. The other thing which, Madam Speaker, I want to say is that manufacturing technologies. It is important that we take a deliberate policy of allowing people to import these manufacturing technologies at a rate that is favorable. And that's where we can kickstart our industrialization. Failure to which we'll be creating market for our colleagues like the way we have done in COMESA. Apart from us hosting it as the headquarters, what is it that Zambia is doing? Madam Speaker, as I support this ratification, going forward, let us try to interrogate the benefits that we are having in this ratification of these protocols. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Wow. Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Chifubu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to say I'm supporting the ratification of this protocol. And as we ratify, we know that we need to protect our local industries in our country that have suffered at the expense of the foreign direct investments that have come, which have made money and externalize this money. So we need to protect our own local industry. For example, in the transport sector, we have the regulations that have been set up there to protect the industry, such as SI 35, which has clearly stated that 50% of the business in the transport sector must be given to our people. However, this has not been actualized to the extent to accord our people an opportunity for business. And we have seen most of the foreigners that have come in, and we have also relaxed the law to the extent and levels that we have allowed some of these foreigners who have come in to do fronting. That is where they have used Zambian people to register their own companies whilst these companies are being run by foreigners. If you look at the broke-making industry, you'll find that there are a lot of Lebanese there who are running there. But when you go to Pakra, you go everywhere, you are going to find that the companies are purported to be run by Zambians when they are being run by foreigners at the expense. But the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise has not stepped up its game to ensure that they protect these local industries that are supposed to create employment in line with the 8th National Development Plan, growth and employment creation. Madam Speaker, I also want to say the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise must be adequately financed to support the manufacturing industry, which is supposed to be the economic driver of our economic recovery in this country, by ensuring that they are adequately funded and financed at the loans that at raw interest rates, so as to promote the manufacturing industry, which will embark on what the the 8th National Development Plan demand, that we need to create value addition and we need to create employment for our people. Indeed, we need to step up our game by making sure that we create investment funds to promote the local businesses, because as we ratify these protocols, they will actually come with new investors who are coming with heavy capital that our local industries will not be able to compete with. Madam Speaker, with these few words, I submit.
Thank you very much. Oh, there is an indication for a point of order. What's the point of order, Honorable Member for Lunte?
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for granting me this opportunity to raise a point of order on what is established as a practice in this House. Madam Speaker, it is a practice that our business here in the House will take precedent. That means a member of Parliament like myself should be in this House transacting business on behalf of the people of Lunte. Even a minister like Honorable Dr. Msokotwane should be in this House transacting business on behalf of the Zambian people. Madam Speaker, look at this bench where ministers sit and go around. Madam Speaker, why should government ministers prioritize ward by-elections over government business? Madam Speaker, why? Is this the country we are going to? Ward by-elections has attracted ministers who should be transacting business. Look at the protocol that we are dealing with on the floor of the House. This protocol, Madam Speaker, relates to industry. Minister Mlenga Chipoka is in Luapula for by-elections of the ward. Are these ministers in order to prioritize ward by-elections over transacting government business, which is important for the Zambian people? Madam Speaker, I seek your very, very serious ruling on this matter.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Lunte. I don't know where these honorable members and ministers are, but if you look in the neighborhood or even on the right, you can see some empty spaces, both for honorable ministers and honorable members of parliament. And as you have rightly pointed out, parliamentary business takes a precedence. Only for those members that have asked for permission, because I have some who have even joined us virtually, about 29 or thereabout, who have asked for permission, and they've been granted. So I don't know among those who you are referring to, but the most important issue is that parliamentary business takes precedence over any other business. So both honorable members and ministers are required to attend parliamentary sittings without any excuse at all. So it applies to all of us. Let's examine ourselves and see whether we are indeed attending business or in the House and representing our people sufficiently. So it's up to all of us, Honorable Member for Lunte, and thank you for raising that point, because I think we need to introspect and see whether we really want to be in this House and transact business. As long as we have a quorum, business will go on. But then the sad situation is that the people of Zambia who elected you, honorable members, to be in this House will not be represented. So is that what we want the people to conclude? So it's a sad situation, and it should not be encouraged. Let's continue with our business. Honorable Member for Pambasha, I noticed that you are in the committee. So we want to give a priority to the members who are not in the committee, because I believe you sufficiently debated this report in the committee. So you'll be excused from debating. We'll go to the Honorable Member for Zambezi East.
Madam Speaker, I would like to thank you most sincerely for giving the people of Zambezi East an opportunity to debate the report of your committee on the national economy, trade, and labor matters. The committee's report speaks about ratifying a protocol. Of course, in other words, people call it a convention, others will call it a covenant, others call it a treaty, but it is one and the same thing. Indeed, international protocols are very important to an economy, and especially for a developing country like ours. And such a report is speaking to development of our industry. And therefore, for that reason, I support the report of your committee. What I just beg to differ with the submission that came from the Honorable Member for Lunte is the manner in which he suggested that if we ratify such a protocol, then if we do not implement or domesticate some of the provisions in that protocol, then it has consequences. I beg to differ on that. And I think international law doesn't permit to go that route. Because ratifying is one stage, domestication is another. And Zambia, being a Commonwealth country and where Commonwealth laws are practiced, we've got two stages in domesticating protocols. The first stage is this one, which we are doing here. We are not passing a law here. There will not be an act. Of course, later on, if we elected, we would have an act to ratify this protocol. Thereafter, if we wish to domesticate this now, that's when we go to the specifics of what is contained in that protocol so that we adjust our laws to conform to what this protocol is actually propagating or is suggesting. So it is in that order. So there is no harm in us ratifying this because it's a stepping stone. After all, we are a developing country. And we belong to a regional organization, the SADC. That's one thing you need to know. So this protocol is one that was formulated by SADC member countries. And we are a member of the SADC. So it is important that we ratify for the good of our regional grouping and belonging to that regional grouping. What remains now is the next step of domesticating the details that are contained in that protocol by adjusting our laws. And this is what you and I should now be thinking about and going to our laws and see what can help, what kind of benefit can we get out of this protocol. And that's how it works. So this is not a subject of debate where we start now pulling each other and the like. So you need to revisit some of these, the reasons to why we come here and debate such things. So I don't want to really waste time by debating things in a different way. The whole idea is to simply put straight why we are actually debating this protocol. And I wanted to actually put the record straight. In such a protocol, there is, of course, there are many protocols that we sign. There are trade protocols, there are development protocols, there are also human rights protocols. And this one, when you look at it, it's actually focused on trade and industry. It is one very good protocol because it's a stepping stone. We are grappling with these challenges of power deficits and so on in the region. So it brings in topical issues which we can put on the table to find out means and ways
Honorable Member,
of how.
I had requested that members take 4 minutes. If you can wind up.
Madam Speaker, I would like to thank you really for the opportunity. I thought I could expand these points just to make sure that some of these people just talking anyhow could learn something from this. But I submit, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
I think we need to make progress. I had already planned my timing. So, Honorable Member for Shuangandu, your indication was rather late. We need to make progress. The Honorable Acting Minister of Commerce and Industry to respond.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, to respond to specific points raised during the debate. The mover of the motion made reference to the issues of construction fees charged by NCC and AIZ. Just to let the mover know that this matter is being attended to. The seconder made reference to the need for infrastructure, especially with reference to interconnecting districts with bituminous roads. This indeed is government policy whose implementation is constrained by lack of resources, but that's the way that we want to go. With respect to what the Honorable Member for Chembe talked about, that these protocols result in Zambia being a dumping ground. I think to forestall that or to mitigate that, the country needs to define exactly what levels of engagement they want with the outside world. And that's why, if you listen very careful to the president's, our president's engagement with the rest of the world, wherever he travels, he has defined 4 criteria in terms of the level of engagement that Zambia now will welcome. The first criteria refers to affordable capital. And I think this is for the rest of the third world, because on the international markets, capital is very expensive for third world countries. Number 2 is access to technology at the right prices. Number 3 is beneficiation or downstream processing of our raw materials here in this country. And the 4th one refers to joint venturing, in which case we want people to come and partner with our citizens in creating these industries. Madam Speaker, I thought I should respond to some of the issues raised by various members of Parliament. But generally, Madam Speaker, I wish to thank you for the opportunity given to discuss the ratification of the SADC protocol on industry. Madam Speaker, the SADC protocol on industry was approved during the SADC Council of Ministers meeting in August 2019, and was subsequently endorsed by 14 heads of state and government. By July 2023, 5 SADC members, Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Seychelles, and Mauritius, had ratified the protocol, with the agreement set for the protocol to take effect once 2/3 of the 16 member states have signed and ratified it. Madam Speaker, ratifying the protocol on industry will positively impact on Zambia's industrialization agenda as follows. A, strengthen Zambia's integration within the SADC region and facilitate the development of common industrial policies and regulations, which would result in reduced technical barriers to trade. B, lead to industrialization and development of competitive industries within the region. C, attract foreign direct investment by creating a more favorable investment climate. And D, create employment opportunities in various sectors, including manufacturing, services, and agriculture. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the SADC protocol on industry is intended to promote industrialization and enhance competition in the country. In that regard, it is necessary that the report be adopted to ratify SADC protocol on industry. Ratifying the protocol is essential to foster diversified, innovative, and globally competitive industrial bases, facilitating sustainable and inclusive industrial development for Zambia and the region at large. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Ron, winding up debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to sincerely thank the honorable members who have debated and supported this motion. Honorable Kafwaya, Honorable Chinkuli, Honorable Mtachalo, Honorable Menyanizulu, Honorable Cliff Mpundu, Honorable Luoza, and Honorable Kambita for supporting this motion. Madam Speaker, I cannot forget to sincerely thank the Acting Minister of Commerce for also putting the icing on the motion, and I can only urge that all honorable members in this House will support this motion. Madam Speaker, lastly, I would want to thank your office for the support that you rendered to the committee while we were interacting with the various stakeholders. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I put up the question. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on National Economy, Trade and Labour Matters on the ratification of the international agreement on the Southern African Development Protocol on Industry for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Monday, 8th July 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. The clerk will now read the orders of the day.
Supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024, resumption of committee work.
The House will now resolve into committee.
When business was interrupted yesterday, Wednesday, 10th July 2024, the House was considering the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024 and had just finished considering Head 52, Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation. We now move to Head 68, Ministry of Tourism. The Honorable Minister of Tourism.
Madam Chairperson, I beg to move that 206,177,229 kwacha be approved in respect of Head 68, Minister of Tourism, as part of the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024.
The question is that 206,177,229 kwacha be approved in respect of Head 68, Ministry of Tourism, as part of the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024. Any debate? Yes, yes. The Honorable Mr. Kampiongo.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to make a few comments on this budget line allocated to the Minister of Tourism. Madam Speaker, I think you have been also here with us, and you have seen how much your members have been complaining. We would like to hear from the Honorable Minister, now that he's getting this allocation, Madam Speaker, whether we now should have hope that he is now going to address this perennial problem of human-animal conflict. Because I think every day, day in, day out, your members here have been lamenting about this matter, which has left most of our people vulnerable in terms of food security. I'll be very brief, Madam Speaker, because this problem has to have a lasting solution. So when we are appropriating money here, we who are complaining, who are people's representatives, it's important that we get the assurances from the Honorable Minister here. Yes, we have got a responsibility to preserve the natural capital, and that forms, and our wildlife is very cardinal. And it's, we know that we are attracting a lot of foreign forex in this area. But our people, Madam Speaker, who live near the GMS have had issues to deal with. And I know, in your wisdom, I would be waiting to hear from the Minister whether out of that money can constitute a task force from here, as the area guided by the Honorable Speaker, to go out and make sure that we find solutions, lasting solutions to this perennial problem of human-animal conflict. You go to Nabwalia, you go to Western, the complaints are the same. And all the matters matters of urgent matters without notice, which have been coming, are on this ministry. So we would like to hear from the Honorable Minister. If he had taken the complaints of members on behalf of their people into account, as he was requesting for that supplementary allocation to the budget that we appropriated to his ministry during the budget for 2024. So, Madam Speaker, I would be waiting for the Minister to speak to this, and if he hasn't thought of that perennial problem as he's requesting for these funds, he might as well vary the funds, because we can't be lamenting over one and the same issue, Madam Speaker, without finding lasting solution. And for him to find solutions, he needs resources to be dedicated to this challenge, which has costed people's lives and has left some of our people vulnerable in terms of food security at household level. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and just to thank the Honorable MP for Shuang and for that valuable contribution. Madam Chairperson, indeed, the aspects of human-wildlife conflict has been very, very topical on the floor of this House, and we as a ministry have not been sitting idle, but to seek ways and means on how we are going to ameliorate some of the big challenges that our communities are faced with, especially those ones within the game management area. But Madam Chairperson, I must hasten to mention that these particular challenges have been precipitated by the current drought that we're experiencing at the moment in our country, vis-a-vis animals walking kilometers in search of water, animals walking kilometers in search of food. And we as a ministry, by way of requesting for a supplementary budget, is one sure way on how we're going to find a lasting solution that will be able to allow us to sink a number of watering holes dotted across the national parks that we have, and indeed supplement in terms of lucerne, especially for rhinos, and as well as hay for some of these heavy browsers which we have across the country. Madam Chairperson, I'm also wanting to indicate to the House that your committee, one of your committees, did propose that members of Parliament also go for a fact-finding mission in many of our national parks across the country. And Madam Chairperson, I want to report that on the 15th of July, which is next week Monday, my ministry is proposing to finally induct your members, the members of Parliament in this House, as vulnerable police officers who will be able to help us manage these particular animals in the various constituencies, especially those ones in our hotspots. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, I want to indicate that as soon as the House adjourns,
I will lead the team of my colleagues from the ministry and indeed select MPs in the various hotspots where we'll be engaging these communities on the dangers of having to agitate these animals and indeed living in these areas which are prone to human-wildlife conflict. Furthermore, Madam Chairperson, my ministry is also looking at ways and means on how we could relocate certain individuals who may inadvertently set up camp in what we would like to call animal corridors, and obviously this is with the help of our colleagues from the ministry, from the Vice President's office under the Resettlement Department. Madam Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you. Just a reminder, yesterday I announced that according to Standing Order 171-4, debate on the motion by other members shall be restricted to only one member from each political party or grouping represented in the House. So we make progress. Mr. Zulu.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Chair, this ministry needs money, but I know, thank God, that something is coming up, but now it's just a concern. This is this ministry, Madam Chair, it's a ministry which is an income-generating ministry. It's not just an expending ministry. It's something which brings in some resources in our country. I just want to ask, as I'm discussing, as I'm contributing on this, this head, Minister, looking at this money which have been given additional money, and you know the problem we have, especially us coming from game management areas and those who are coming from national parks, is that we don't have personnel, we don't have vehicles for your officers. I'll tell you, like in my district, you've got 4 or 5 camps, no vehicles, people use motorcycles. Are we seeing an improvement in this game officers we have? Are we seeing you even repairing their old vehicles, taking them for proper rehabilitation? For in the case of a land closer, take it for a proper rehabilitation, not to workshops where they're going to charge you millions, but they're workshop where you can send these vehicles, work on them, and they become new. Are we seeing you buying new vehicles for these officers so that they can react where there's a problem? It's sad today that those who are managing our game ranches, the private owners, they only react when an elephant is killed, when a buffalo is killed. When a human is killed, there is no reaction to anyone. When they find somebody farming in his own farm, they will arrest that person as well. This is animal, they call it for animals. And the police and the owners have made sure that our officers have been compromised, both from Zambia police and from your ministry. So it takes the community to release those people. Now, my question to you, Minister, again, are we seeing from this money you employing the locals? Because what happens is that we select 2 people from Kanyama, send them to Chama, you send them to Nyimba's officers, you train them at Sondera. They understand little about animals. They can't manage animals. When the owners who have grown up with the animals, they are school leavers, they can't be given a job. Are we seeing you changing the policy so that the people who knows how to manage these animals are given a professional training, and with the traditional training they have, it'll be easier for them to manage the animals? Or are we seeing again the same people from the city of Lusaka going back into Livingstone, going back into Rwanda National Park, going back into South Rwanda National Park, Kafue National Park to manage animals? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism.
Madam Chairperson, indeed that was a double-barreled question, but I'll be very quick. In respect to repairing motor vehicles, yes, indeed, I think it's more administrative. And then going forward, Madam Chairperson, what we have realized as a ministry is that we need to make these particular national parks become more of revenue-generating entities, and as such, they'll become more sustainable by way of funding for themselves. With respect to buying motor vehicles, the ministry has had acquired...
As the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes.
Good afternoon. You are tuned into Parliament Television. business of the House has been suspended for a 20-minute health break, and so we expect business to resume at 17 hours. And the House has resolved into Committee of Supply, in which it's considering the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024. And at the time, Madam First Deputy Speaker was suspending business, the Minister of Tourism was responding to a question that Nyimba Member of Parliament, Mr. Menyani Zulu, has raised. This is in line with Head 68, Ministry of Tourism, the head that the House is considering. And so when business resumes at 17 hours, we expect the Minister of Tourism to continue responding to a question that has been raised by Nyimba Member of Parliament, Mr. Menyani Zulu.
When business resumed at 14:30 today, Madam Speaker did make an announcement. In her announcement, she did recognize in the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Luke School in Makeni, Villa, Lusaka District, and Matero Middle Park School in Matero, Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, Madam Speaker warmly welcomed the visitors to the National Assembly of Zambia. There was a ruling that Madam Speaker rendered earlier in the day. The details of that ruling, Matimba.
Yes, President, this is on a point of order by Honorable Gary Nkombo MP, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, against Mr. Lucas Mumba, Member of Parliament for Nakonde. And so we'll be able to share with you the details of this ruling later on.
The Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane, MP, did render a ministerial statement on the floor of the House, and that ministerial statement was on the proposed ban on the use of foreign currencies for local financial transactions and the phasing out of the checks. And details of that ministerial statement will come later after the House has adjourned. And at the time business was suspended, the House has resolved into Committee of Supply to consider the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024. And when business resumes, the chairperson, will continue conducting business in committee. And we need to take a break as well. And when we come back, we'll definitely be able to share with you some of the business that has been considered on the floor of the House. Keep watching Parliament Television.